Chairman yields back. Chair now recognizes Mr. Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to our witnesses. We've been talking a lot about the Biden-Harris record. It's, I think, important to note that we're doing this hearing likely because the debate was such a disaster for Donald Trump and for the House majority. Now, I was actually there in Philly. It was embarrassing to watch. Donald Trump admitted, of course, to terminating Roe v. Wade. He attacked reproductive freedoms. He wants to kill the Affordable Care Act and spread misinformation about immigrants eating cats and dogs. And I just also want to remind folks that we've been talking a lot about Project 2025, of which many witnesses know a lot about, and which Donald Trump said contains many good ideas. But it's not just Project 2025. Donald Trump has already been the president, and I thought it was also important at this moment to review his record. Let's start with some of the facts about Donald Trump. Donald Trump, first and foremost, had the worst jobs presidency since World War II and maybe American history. The worst jobs record since World War II and maybe American history. He lost 4.9 million American jobs. He added 4.8 trillion to the debt, even without the COVID-related spending. Now, cities and communities like mine were facing disaster. State and local governments were looking at service cuts. Schools, vital programs were all being looked at being cut. By contrast, if we're talking about the Biden-Harris record, 15.4 million jobs were added during the Biden-Harris administration. And the Project 2025 agenda, we know, will raise a sales tax on everything we buy, and economists think it will cost the American family an average of $1,700 per year and would cost 600,000 American jobs and could even cause a recession. But it's not just the economic destruction. Let's talk about his COVID mismanagement. We lost 1.3 million American lives, a disaster under Donald Trump. He asked people that we could combat the virus by injecting disinfectant into people's bodies. He failed to get PPE out the door. He picked fights with governors rather than uniting the country. We were on our own, and Donald Trump should own his failures with the pandemic. But let's look at the rest of the Trump record. He destroyed Roe v. Wade as the third thing on this bullet point. He brags about the extremist Supreme Court and turning back Roe v. Wade. Just this week, ProPublica documented a heartbreaking case where a Georgia woman waited for 20 hours after doctors refused to perform a routine procedure. She passed away. Her death was preventable, but Donald Trump is putting these state abortion bans in place through his judges and the legislatures all across the country. But let's talk about family separation, because it doesn't just end there. His record attacking immigrants like myself and my family is also shameful. He's promising the most extreme mass deportations in the country, going door to door to arrest our neighbors and friends. He believes that immigrants poison the blood of his country, his quote, not mine. And of course, let's remember, he just, at the debate, he kept talking about somehow immigrants, Haitian immigrants, are eating pets in Ohio, and we know that's not true. This country and the world should be united against this type of rhetoric and this record. We all want a secure border, but Donald Trump has shown us time and time again through his record and his future agenda, the Project 2025 agenda, that he has zero respect for immigrants and for the Latino community. But I want to also end with January 6th. Donald Trump betrayed his oath of office when he provoked an attack on this Capitol and an insurrection on January the 6th. Project 2025 shows how we will continue to threaten our institutions and our democracy. The Trump administration was a disaster, and you don't need to take my word for it. Why we're talking about the Biden-Harris record, when it fixed the COVID crisis, when jobs are up, when unemployment is down, and not focus on the destruction of Donald Trump, is clearly because this is, again, another political committee hearing. And let's look at what others have said. Vice President Mike Pence, former Attorney General Bill Barr, former Defense Secretaries Jim Mattis and Mark Esper, former National Security Advisors H.R. McMaster and John Bolton, former Chief of Staff like John Kelly. All of these folks believe that Donald Trump is unfit to serve as president, that he's failed this country and the Constitution. We cannot go back. With that, I yield back.
Gentlemen yield back.
Gentlemen yield.
Chair. Oh, I was asking for the time. Is that okay? Yes. Thank you. But I just wonder on that point whether any of the witnesses would comment on this unprecedented defection of former Trump officials from supporting him. And anybody, who is on the Project 2025 side wants to weigh in on that, or Ms. Perryman, what you say about Vice President Pence and these former cabinet officials who've abandoned Donald Trump. Any comments on that?
Yeah, I think President Trump has spoken explicitly about the majority of these people were either running against him in the case of Vice President Pence, or they lost their job because.
Well, Pence
Vice
wasn't
President-
running against him
Hey,
when
gentlemen's
the mob
time's
came in
expired.
chanting, "Hang Mike Pence." He was planning. He
Gentlemen.
ran with Donald Trump.
Many of the people
Gentlemen.
who Mr. Garcia referenced are people who were let go because they failed to fulfill the vision that President Trump had painted.
Oh, so
for
I
the
see.
American
There's nothing
people
wrong
and
with
that
what
they had
Donald Trump
accepted.
did. You're blaming it on these people.
Gentlemen's time's expired.
I'm just
Before
saying
I
they're more-
recognize
Yeah.
Ms.
Like
Mays,
great
yes,
fired
before,
employees.
yeah,